Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and hands-on review of a rather strange gadget. This is smart gloves, or rather Bluetooth talking gloves. Essentially, you can connect it to any smartphone using Bluetooth, and when the phone rings or someone is calling you, you can pick up the phone call using this particular gesture. And this part acts as a receiver, and then the pinky hand acts as a microphone, so you can then talk to someone like this. It may seem like a very unusual kind of device at first. However, it makes a bit of sense if you are in a really cold location, such as in New York or maybe Alaska in December, and it's freezing outside. You don't want to be actually handling your phone and then talking for a long period of time. Then this actually keeps you warm, but it does make you seem a little bit strange when you are walking around like this. Another feature of these gloves is that it also conducts your touch. So just like other touchscreen gloves, you can wear this and still interact with the touchscreen display on your phone. So it's got some special kind of fibers for the thumbs that are accented, and that means you can still interact with a regular tablet or a phone without any issues. This sells on Amazon for $18, so it's a fairly, I would say, decently priced for kind of a novelty gadget, but also for something that's unusual. I would say it's not too bad. And again, it really is marketed as a glove that is used for the winter time, that is touchscreen sensitive, as well as able to be used for answering phone calls like a Bluetooth headset. Packaging here, pretty simple, not too much going on. The side here just gives you a bit of info about how it works. It charges up using micro USB, as you can see there, and works for around 6 hours on a continuous go before you need to recharge it again, and works with iOS as well as Android. Inside the packaging, we have, of course, the gloves themselves. We'll take a closer look at this in a second. And there's also a pouch that contains the quick start guide, which I actually recommend taking a closer look at the first time, just to tell how to turn it on, as well as how to pair it and to begin a phone call. Something I want to point out is it uses Bluetooth version 3.0 and not necessarily 4.0 or 5.0. So it's not quite as energy efficient. It has a connection range of roughly 10 meters or 33 feet. Not a big deal because the phone will probably be in your pocket anyways, and the charging time is roughly 1.5 hours when plugged into a power source. Here is just a standard micro USB cable for power, and that's it. So taking a closer look at the design of the gloves first, as far as gloves are concerned, it's not anything fancy. It's not made out of a really thick or durable material, but it is good enough. If you're outdoors and there's a bit of a cold temperature, it does keep your hands and fingers warm. With that being said, if you're handling snow, it still isn't going to be quite as kind of thermally insulated. It's a pretty standard kind of fabric, nylon fabric that they're using here. The end here features the power key, which you can tap and hold for a few seconds longer to activate the pairing mode. The keys themselves I found to actually be quite tactile and responsive, as well as clicky, which is nice to see because a lot of kind of buttons that they integrate into wearables like smart jackets, smart gloves, smart hats that we've seen tend to be a little bit tricky because fabric moves around and buttons can kind of shift around, so sometimes you have to feel your way around for the correct posture. But on here, they're actually very tactile and responsive. When a phone call comes in, you have to tap on the answer call key, and afterwards you put it in this position, again for answering the call. Overall, this part adds a little bit of extra bulk onto the left side of the glove, but it's not too bad. It overall still is quite manageable. And then on the edge here is where you would pull on this seam to find the micro USB port for charging. So it works pretty well. Again, since the port here does contain kind of electrical parts, including a battery, I wouldn't say that this is the best glove in the world to handle snow or get wet on purpose. So just keep that in mind. It's meant for kind of colder climates, but not necessarily extreme climates either. Otherwise, you can see that the glove hands that have the silver tip, these are the ones with the special conductive tips that will still work in passing along your touch to the display on the phone. The ones that are black here do not work when you try to touch a display with it. Otherwise, the pinky here is also where, again, the microphone is integrated. So again, design-wise, pretty smart and not anything too unusual. It feels pretty discreet and typical. Here I have a phone. As you can see, using the conductive tips, it actually works really well. It's quite sensitive, and everything is still fully functional, including all the capacitive parts. It's not going to work with a biometric fingerprint scanner because that still requires physical press with your flesh to read the grooves. So that means for Touch ID on iPhones, you still technically kind of have to remove the glove to unlock it. But you can always use a PIN, you can always use a password, and that works nicely as well. Or in the case of the iPhone 10, that doesn't even hold true, since you can just use facial recognition and that will not have to worry about Touch ID. But the screen part you can see here works without any issues with the gloves on, but you can see here that if I use one of the black fingers, nothing happens because again, it isn't conductive. So again, it's a pretty special material that makes that happen. It's sensitive enough even to type out letters as well as to select more precise things, so there's really no complaints. And since both of the thumbs are conductive, you can easily still type without having any problems. So it's still accessible as far as all the features on your phone, which is nice to see. Otherwise, the connection range in my testing was actually quite good, and it was surprisingly functional. I thought that it would be almost too gimmicky to actually work at all, but surprisingly it connected to my phone without any issues, and with the phone in my back pocket, I could easily answer a phone call, and then using this gesture, I could pick up my voice without any issues and hear my callers too without too much problems. Obviously the sound isn't going to be really rich, it's not going to be super detailed, it's not super clean or crisp sounding, but it gets loud enough to hear. It works, and it works surprisingly well for something that seems quite gimmicky on paper and sells for under $20. Not quite as good again as a dedicated Bluetooth earpiece or a headset, which is much more practical, but this keeps your fingers warm, and at the same time the voices again get loud enough. It's a little bit tinny, of course, since the speaker isn't super high-tech or expensive, but at the same time you can hear people and people can hear you, at least in my testing so far, without any problems. Battery life seems to be a little bit low. In my testing I only got roughly 5.5 hours of use before I needed to recharge it, and the fact that it's kind of recessed in the fabric is one downside. You kind of have to play around with it to find where it is in order to charge it. But other than that, it actually works quite well in terms of answering phone calls in this particular posture. Something that I was quite impressed about is that the fact that I couldn't really tell that there was any additional sensory behind the gloves, especially on kind of the pinky finger here, which is where the microphone is supposedly located. It feels as light as any other glove. On here, this is where the earpiece is located. You can kind of make out that there's an object inside. It's not quite as bendable. That's where the drivers are for the speaker, but otherwise it still remains quite lightweight. This particular glove cannot be washed, at least not in the regular washer, so make sure that you keep that in mind. The other one doesn't contain any electrical circuitry or any smart sensors or batteries, can be washed like a regular glove, so that's something to again point out. The gloves themselves can actually be reversed as well, so if you don't mind, you can wear it like this on your right hand, so you can pick the hand that you would want to use to answer the phone call with, so it's pretty convenient in that sense. Again, call quality isn't amazing, but it really is solid, and it's good enough to use in some quick emergency conditions when you're walking outside for some quick short phone calls. It does the job without too many problems. So that's pretty much it as far as our hands-on impressions review of the Talking Glove, or the Bluetooth Smart Glove. Really a interesting concept that is unusual, but at the same time actually makes some sense, especially as the weather is getting quite cold in many places around the world right now for the holiday season and New Year's, and you don't want to be fumbling around with your phone or holding your hands out in the snow, in the cold for too long. This combines some unique features into a glove. Check out more details about this in our article coming out soon, but for now this has been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.